Okay, we're now going to common size commerce and the industry's balance sheet. So for the income statement, the common size was based on revenues, right? Whatever the revenue type is. For balance sheets, the common size is based on total assets. So for every single year, you want every line item to be calculated as a percentage of the total assets for that year. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unmerge these cells because Excel doesn't like it when you try to copy into merged cells. And I'm going to go in and I am going to copy the line items of the balance sheet and I'm going to paste those down. Okay. And I'm just going to start by taking the first line item, which is cash and due from depository, and I'm going to divide it by the total assets. Now, in preparation for dragging the formula across years and down line items, I know that I want the columns to be able to change, but I want the row reference for that total asset line to be fixed. Okay, so as I drag down, I want the total asset row 59, to stay the same. But as I drag across years, I want the columns to change. So pause the video right now and think about where you might put the absolute references for this formula. And I'll meet you back here when you're ready to go. Okay, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to start off the equation with an equal sign. And I'm going to go up to cash due from depository divided by total assets. Okay, and I'm going to go down to the formula. And I'm going to press the F4 until I have a dollar sign in front of the row, no dollar sign in front of the column measure. Okay, that is as a percentage. I'm going to increase it 1. Okay, and I am going to drag it down and I am going to drag it all the way to the right. Okay, I'm going to copy this format painter, paint it down, paint it across, make sure everything is in terms of percentages, a decimal point out, and in a red font because they're all calculations. And there you go. The one downside to like dragging the formula all the way across is like, I'll have these nonsensical, because there's nothing inside these cells, these nonsensical references, which I'll just delete. And there we go. We have common sized the balance sheet. Okay, so I have a couple of things that I want you to think about on this balance sheet, right? I want you to think about the percent of assets as, not this one, this one. Percent of assets as securities. So I want you to think about this line item. And then percent of assets as net loans and leases. I want you to think about these two lines together. Okay. So meaning, well, actually, I'm going to back up. Remember how a bank makes money. Presumably, they take in deposits and they lend out the money, right, that they've taken in. And that's one of the ways in which they make money. The ones that they lend out, that's this line, right? Net loans and leases. They've loaned out that money to somebody else. Whatever money they don't loan out to somebody else, right? They usually go and buy securities. So they buy like US bonds or muni bonds, some super safe form of debt investment, or they may buy some stocks. That's the securities line. So remember, banks, they take in deposits and then they either lend them out or they buy bonds, which is essentially lending it to the US government or lending it to the government. Okay, so think of these two line items and then also think of the assets as bank premise and fixed assets. Think about this line. How much of their assets are tied up in the buildings and the fixed assets of their branches, right? And then think of the total assets as, think of the total assets as deposits, right? As deposits versus the assets that are invested in securities that are invested out. So how am I going to do this? The next comparison that you want to make is think about this, right? Again, I mentioned banks take money in and then they either lend it to people or they, buy bonds, lending it to a government of some sort. So this is, the percent of their assets that are actually in deposits, and then where those deposits kind of go to. Do they get loaned back out? Do they go and get loaned back out to governments? Think about the proportion between total deposits and then versus the proportion of securities and net loans and leases. And then write a couple statements on that. Okay. I will see you in the next video.